is going on, everybody, and welcome back to TCG Madness. And today's video, we're doing another starter deck review from Alter TCG. Today's deck is the Axiom deck, and this deck, much like the Orders deck, it revolves and centralizes building tokens. Difference between each deck: Orders deck uses Human Soldier 1/1s. The Axiom uses more Machinery Brass Bug tokens that are 2/2/2s across the board. So I'm very interested to see how this deck differs from the Orders deck, if there is really any differences, or we just, again, building tokens, going wide and building it up. In this deck review, I will be going over all the contents inside this deck, and then I'm also going to take some cards out, and then with the cards that I take out, I'll be adding some cards in to give this deck some much needed firepower and a little bit more synergy. But before we go any further, if you guys can do me the really big favor right now, please do me the big favor. Just hit that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to also comment down below if you agree, disagree with any of my choices. Listen, I'm not afraid of any criticism. Again, we may agree to disagree on certain deck choices. I actually welcome you guys to please comment down below if you disagree with anything that I may or may not do with this deck. I'm totally okay with that. I know in the last couple of videos, I had a couple of people messaging that they think they would have done some things they would have done some things differently. I absolutely encourage you to, yes, please comment down below. So I'd like to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you guys have to say about certain things that I do. I'm the type of person that likes to build decks maybe sometimes a little bit differently, and I'm also just not above any type of criticism, because when I do build these decks and I do test them out, there are some times where somebody will comment, I'm like, actually, you know what, I did catch that myself. I think that was with the Orders deck. There was someone that commented like, hey, you build a lot of tokens, but you just build them just to build them. What about, you know, building them and then actually making them a little bit stronger? You were correct on that deck as well. So absolutely take all that into consideration when you guys comment down below. So this deck, much like all the other decks, pretty standard, right? We pretty much know what to expect. Plastics always give me a hard time. There we go. There we go. So yep, like our typical, we get the nice little code right there. Pretty standard. And of course, we get our hero front and center. This is Sierra and Oddball. That's an Axiom hero, of course. It has 2 reserve, 2 landmarks, pretty staple like all the other ones. And it does say, when you play a permanent with a hand cost of 3 or more, you may exhaust me to create a 2/2/2 brass robot token in target expedition. This one, though, very different than the other one. The other one just pretty much makes one when I think it's your turn on noon or something, which is pretty good, right? I'm speaking of the Orders deck, of course. This one, though, it says anytime you play anything with a 3 or more hand cost, you can tap it and then create a 2/2/2 brass bug. So pretty much what we want to do is we want to have cards that are at least obviously a little bit more 3 than more, right? We also then want to be able to utilize it as much as possible by tapping and creating those those brass bugs. And we also want cards in this deck that are going to create more brass bugs. But we're not going to just create them like the Orders deck. I don't want to just create just for the sake of creating them this time. This time I'm going to actually try to focus on actually going wide and then beefing them up a little bit and actually learn from my past mistakes like the Orders deck that I built. So I do like this hero a lot. I think this is actually a really good hero out of all of them. I think this one definitely has some good synergy with the deck. Let's see what the deck actually has for us, though. We get Keelan Elemental, which is a 2/2 for a 1/3/3. It says put a card from your hand in reserve. Not a bad card to play at all. Actually a pretty nice card for a 2-drop. We also have Axiom Salvager for a 1/2/1/1/1 that just says resupply when you play it out of your reserve. Pretty nice card there. We also have Amelia Earhart, which is a 3/1 for a 2/2/2 just across the board. We get a nice little play set of that one. I do like this card, though. For a 2/2/2, you actually get to play it out of your reserve for 1, which is actually not that bad. We also have a Foundry Armorer for a 3/3 for a 2 across the board, and it says when you play this out of reserve, create a Brass Bug robot token. So definitely a good synergy card there. We also have the Keelan Burst for a 3/3. It does say this card has fleeting, and this is a spell card. Send to reserve target character with a hand cost of 4 or less. And it also has another one that says discard target permanent with a hand cost of 4 or less. So you can pretty much remove something that's either 4 or less from the reserve, or 4 more in the targeted area as well. So not bad there. You get to choose one of those. I actually like that for source of removal, and pretty good card there. We also have the Brass Bug Hub, which is an excellent landmark. I remember playing with this one as well. This has a 3/3 for I gain 3 Keelan counters. At noon, you may pay 1 and spend 1 of my Keelan counters to create a Brass Bug token. Really, really good card there. Definitely a staple. Also has a second landmark permanent for a 4/4 Axiom reprocessor. It says at noon, resupply. Not bad there at all. We also have Foundry Mechanic for a 1/1. For a 0/1/1/1, and it says the next permanent you also has a quick action. The next permanent you play this turn cost 1 less. Okay, not terrible. We also have the Geon Assembly Overseer for a 2/2 for a 3/2/0. So not bad there. We also have a rare version of it as well. And the added bonus for having the rare version is activate the triggers of target permanent you control. Okay, that's not bad. I can actually see that becoming a little useful. Also have the 3 little pigs for a 3/3, 3 across the board. If you control 2 or more landmarks, I gain a boost. So not bad there. And we also have a rare version of them that just says I gain 2 boost if you control 2 or more landmarks. So really good there. This deck though is landmark central too, so you got to make sure your landmarks are really good. They have good synergy with your hero. That's definitely something I noticed when I was playtesting this deck on Board Game Arena. We also get a 4/3 Axiom Scrambler for a 2/4/2, and it also says when you play this at your hand, Sabotage. That's not bad. We also get the rare version that just has a 3/3 for a 2/4/2. So not bad there. And we also have a 5/5, another landmark, a Brass Bug Hive. Create a 2/2 robot token and target expedition at noon. Create another Brass Bug token. So very, very good synergy there. You guys can see we actually get 3 landmarks in this deck. We also get the rare version of this one. That's has the added bonus to it. When a robot joins your expedition, it gains 1 boost, which is good for the Brass Bug tokens, of course. We also have Colonic Generator, which is another landmark. So for a 4/4, tap it, pay 1 to draw a card. We also have the Ouroboros Lyria Bastion for another landmark. For a 3/3, when you play it, add it to either hand or reserve. Resupply. If you would resupply, instead reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. Put 1 in the reserve and the other in the and discard the other. So that's really, really nice card there. We also have the Frog Prince as a last rare in this deck. And then we have, of course, our typical cards that you need to play a quick game of Alter TCG. Here are the Brass Bug tokens in general too, so pretty nice there, pretty standard there. So that's the deck in and of itself. I kind of like this deck a lot. I can see a lot of good pieces that we can definitely use, but it's just not a perfect deck yet, right? Like we can see a couple of cards we can easily take out, which is what I'm going to go over next. I'm now going to go over the cards that I would take out. Then we're going to head over to Alter GG, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you the cards that I would add that give this deck some much needed firepower and some better synergy. All right, now to show you the cards that I would take out before I show you the cards that we're going to add. Starting off with the rares, we're getting rid of the copy of the Frog Prince. Again, this card is just kind of thrown in there. I don't think it has any place to be in this deck. We're also getting the rare Geon Assembly Overseer. We're getting the rare Axiom Scrambler gone. The 3/3 Ouroboros rare Bastion, we're getting rid of that. We're also getting rid of the rare, the Colonic Generator. We're getting rid of the rare Brass Bug Hive. Again, this card's not bad, and I can see you may make an argument to keep it in. The reason why I'm getting rid of it is just because of that hand cost right there. That 6/6, that's a lot of mana to use. It does create 2 of the tokens that you would want, and also 2 when it joins you get a boost. So I may actually end that. By the end of this deck review, I may actually end up keeping this in the deck, and I will let you know if I do. But for now, I would at least consider getting rid of it. I would also get rid of the copies of the Keylon Elemental. I think there are better cards that you can add. And then also to the playset of the Geon Assembly. We're also getting rid of 1 of the Brass Bug Hub, and we're getting rid of the permanent Axiom Processor. We're getting rid of all playsets of that one because I do think I have a better option for you. So with that being said, let me go ahead and show you guys the cards that I added. All right, now we're here at Alter GG. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys with the cards that we've taken out. I'm gonna show you guys the cards that we're going to add. And of course, quick disclaimer, I don't know what your unique situation looks like. If you have a unique that says create a bunch of brass bugs and boost them as well, stuff like that, this probably deserves to be in this deck. That goes without saying. So with that, we've taken out pretty much almost every single rare. We only have 2 rares with the current starter deck that we have been given, so we really got to boost up all those rares. First off, we're going to go ahead and add a rare copy of the Brass Bug Hub. The reason why we're adding this card is because that hand cost right there. The hand cost and the reserve cost is a 2/2, and it does everything this deck wants to do, right? You pay 1 Keylon counter to make a Brass Bug token at noontime. That's pretty good. I like this card a lot. Being able to at least make 3 Brass Bug tokens by only paying 2 mana or paying 2 out of the reserve, I think is a pretty good trade-off. I would definitely add 1 copy of this rare Brass Bug Hub. The other thing we're going to add is 3 copies of Jeanne d'Arc. This is the out-of-faction rare. It's a 5/5 for a 3 across the board, but at least it has, when I leave the expedition zone, create a Brass Bug robot token each of your expedition zones. So you're creating 2. You're creating 1 in the hero and 1 in the companion when it leaves expedition. Like this card a lot. I actually think this is a great out-of-faction rare with this, and the fact that you can do 2 things with this card as well, right? So you play it, you get Jeanne d'Arc. You tap your hero, then you're going to create a Brass Bug token. So now you have on the board a Brass Bug, and you have a Jeanne d'Arc by playing 5 mana. When she leaves, you're going to create 2 more Brass Bug tokens. If you have it in the reserve, you probably play it out of reserve again. It goes back in. And if you tap your hero again, now you should successfully have created 3 Brass Bugs and having Jeanne d'Arc on the field as well. It's a lot of power to have on the field. Pretty good card as well. I think 3 copies of this one definitely gives you a good plan A option for winning the game. I can definitely see this card kind of like taking over the board, creating all those tokens, and you can go wide with it. So I think it's a pretty good card. I think it definitely deserves to be in there. The other card we're going to add 3 copies of the Foundry Engineer. This is the rare version. It's a 2/2 for 2/2/1. The cool thing about this card, it has that ability down below. The next permanent you play this afternoon costs 2 or less. You have to play it out of the reserve to get that ability. I like that card a lot because cards like Jeanne d'Arc now become a cost of 3. Cards like Brass Bug Hub become 0. So a lot of other candidates too that if you think of, like the 3 Little Pigs now become essentially only 1 cost. You got the Axiom Scrambler, now that becomes a 2 cost. Your Brass Bug Hive becomes 3 cost. The Brass Bug Hubs become 1 cost, like the regular versions. Like, there's a lot of good candidates to probably play with this. So by playing Foundry Engineer for 2 out of your reserve, reducing something by 2, maybe you only have like 1 or 2 mana left. There's a lot of candidates you can choose by using that ability. I like that reduction cost by 2, so I definitely think you're going to need 3 copies of this card in your deck. The other thing you're going to want to put is 3 copies of Ogun. This is a 2/2 for a 2/1/1, and it has pay 2, create a Brass Bug robot token in target expedition. The robots you control gain 1 boost. Obviously, it goes without saying, all the tokens are robots, so they're all going to get boost. This is also a great win condition to get paired up with like Jeanne d'Arc. If you went late game, you can see a little bit of synergy with all of it, right? You maybe Jeanne d'Arc left, so you have 2 tokens, play Ogun for 2, pay another 2, create Brass Bugs, maybe you have a Brass Bug Hive permanent. This deck is a slow rolling deck, but once the engine gets going, it's very hard to beat this deck. That's why Ordris does one thing very well. There's cheap cards, there's a bunch of 1/1 tokens, they make a lot of them at constant speed. This deck, though, with Axiom, takes a little bit longer to create that and get that engine going, get that board state going. If you can hold off your opponent for as long as possible, by turn 4 or 5, once you have 5, 6, 7 mana, you should start to see that engine going. This deck can definitely take off and can definitely go wide with those tokens, and then you want to beef up those tokens as well. You don't want to just make them for the sake of making them. You want to make all these 2/2/2s and then beef them up by 1s, and then you have a bunch of 3/3s across the boards here. Very hard for your opponent to keep up with you at that point. So I like this card a lot. Definitely think it needs to be in the deck. Now, the last one is another permanent that we're going to put into this deck. This is the Keelan Cylinder. This is the rare version. We're going to put 3 copies of it in the deck. It's a 1/1, so it's very cheap. But these abilities right here are fantastic. So you play it out of your hand or out of your reserve, target character gains a boost. You can tap it to gain 2 Keelan counters. Then you can spend 1 of the Keelan counters to give target character a boost. Again, when you make all these tokens, you just don't want to make them for the sake of making them. You want to make them and then beef them up. The more you can beef up those tokens and you make those little 2/2s, a bunch of 3/3s, very difficult for like opponent with like an Orchard's deck, right? Those 1/1s, if you can make a bunch of them, that's great. But if you make them for the sake of making them, 1/1s are pretty easy to counter, right? You're going to need, for every 1/1/1, you need, that's 1 2/2/2s, right? So your opponent's got to create 2 of those 1/1 tokens and then to just counter 1 of your 2/2 tokens. So if you have something like this, now they have to create a bunch of tokens to really keep up with you. So I really like this card a lot. And then the last thing we're going to add to the deck is 2 copies of the Ada Lovelace. This is a 2/2 for a 1/3/1. I like this card because it has this ability right here out of your reserve. You may put a card from your hand in reserve. If it's a permanent, draw a card. I like it for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I like taking cards out of my hand and putting my reserve, especially if I have a cheap reserve reduction cost. And then also I like drawing cards. There's a lot of permanents in your deck. For example, let's just go ahead and go back to the Keelan Cylinder, right? Play her out of your reserve, drop this into your reserve, and then you get to draw a card, and then for 1 mana you get to play the Keelan Cylinder, then you get to boost up a bunch of stuff as well. So there's a lot of good, like, quick little synergy plays that you can do that, you know, because again, a game like Alter TCG where everything's going back and forth, you can't really just set up a bunch of combo pieces. You got to kind of set up your board, and then you can kind of combo off of that a little bit, and it's kind of like a weird rotation on how it works in this game. All these little things that you can do are really good, and they're really cost efficient as well. Like, all the cards we're adding, besides Jeanne d'Arc, are pretty much 3 or less. Like, these are all, actually, they're all 2s or less. So every card we're adding is very cheap. And in a game like Alter TCG, if you go into that 5, 6, 7 mana rounds and stuff like that, when you're getting that high, then you should be dropping in your big, your big win conditions, really your Brass Bug Hive. Then you want to play cards like Jeanne d'Arc. Then you want to play Ogun and just really beef up everything. Now, going back to one thing I did say about this deck, I would absolutely put in the rare version of the Brass Bug Hive. I would actually put this in the deck, and I actually will put it in my deck. I'll probably take out something else that's, maybe I'll take out like the 3 Little Pigs or the Foundry Mechanic or something. I don't know, but I definitely would keep the 6/6 Brass Bug Hive, because it is definitely a great win condition when paired up with like cards like Jeanne d'Arc or something like that as well. So I definitely would put that in the deck. With that being said, that is going to do it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you guys think I missed anything, or maybe you guys would do something a little bit different, really want to hear from some of you guys. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.